Welcome back to The Remote Life. My name is Han Talbot, also known as Han Meets World, and today we'll be chatting with Marie Tuason. Originally from the Philippines, Marie is the founder and CEO of digital marketing agency Adrenaline Agency, as well as the founder of Kaya Connections, a retreats and co-living program helping nomads build lasting connections through harmonious experiences. In this episode, we talk about mindful travel, how remote lifers can incorporate mindfulness into their own travels, and things people may be surprised to know about the Philippines. So grab a coffee, a tea, or something stronger, and let's get started. Marie, welcome to the Remote Life podcast. How are you?
I'm full. I just had my breakfast. See, we've been talking about here, but I'm doing really well. Honestly, I woke up early, did my routine, and now I'm talking to you. So I'm doing really well. How about you?
For people who are maybe listening to this episode and can't see, Marie has made some amazing pancakes with like fruit and things like that.
Protein.
I'm sorry, protein pancakes. Gotta be specific. Yeah, there's a difference.
It's harder to make fluffy protein pancakes, and I kind of like cracked the code. So I'm actually really proud of myself, like patting on the back, because most of the protein pancakes are really, really dry. This one it's still a little bit dry, but like it's edible.
Yeah.
That's the important thing.
Love it, love it, love it. And you're obviously like tuning in at the moment from Bansko, right? How's it all going?
Bansko is amazing. It's my base really is usually in Valencia in Spain, where right now it's like 45, 44 degrees Celsius.
Oof.
Here it's a perfect 31, 32 degrees in the high time. It's a bit windy right now, but still good. I'm not a mountain girl, so a lot of people are always scared, and not scared, but like they think it's strange that I'm here. But it's the perfect opportunity for me to actually just hone in on work and hone in on like things that I need to focus on without any distractions of like the beach or surfing or going outside. So this one, I mean, I still go outside, like literally the mountain is just right in front of me right now. But like it's a beautiful place to just be beside nature. I love it.
I love that. Yeah, you guys obviously the Nomad Fest was what 2 months ago. 2 months ago now. Yeah, and for people who maybe aren't kind of like as well, who are maybe more newer to the digital nomad scene, there is a big nomad festival that happens there every year at normally the end of June, and yeah, there are still quite a few people who are hanging around and having some adventures, and I'm getting a bit of FOMO watching your stories. It looks absolutely incredible.
I was going to say it's only supposed to be for 2 weeks here in Bansko, but I fell in love with it, and honestly everything is just so affordable, and like the people, the nature. So I extended for 2 months.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I'm not surprised, honestly. And of course you spoke as well. How did your talk go? Tell us a bit more.
So my talk was about how to build a thriving business regardless of where you're from. For people who don't know me too much, I came from a third world country, and now I'm kind of like, living the dream of like quote unquote living the dream, because what is the dream,
living
right?
your dream.
Anyway, I'm more, let's say, living my dream. Yeah, I took life into my own hands and figured out a way to get higher valued clients without them caring if I'm from wherever, and where if they don't care if I'm in Bulgaria or in Spain or whatever. So a lot of people still tend to get like is still having a lot of imposter syndrome. So my talk was all about that, like how to build, like how to get higher value clients. A lot of people actually got so inspired by it. I know some people who were really like using my tips and tricks. One of my tips was like actually have a photo shoot, because even though it's simple, a photo shoot, it still changes a lot in your mind and your mindset. And this one guy just messaged me saying like, hey, I took your advice. I had a photo shoot. And now it's like I saw it on LinkedIn and he looks so legit. And I'm pretty sure this guy is going to go like far off. And it's so nice. And because of that talk too, I got invited to several different other smaller nomad fests. I have one in Niche next week. That's very interesting. And I'm probably going to go somewhere in December. I'm not yet allowed to say.
Nice. Okay, so you kind of hinted a little bit at this already, including the fact that you are not typically a mountain girly and all the rest of it. So let's just go back a little bit. Tell us about you and your remote life journey so far.
Okay, so the start of my remote life journey is pretty like wonky and gray, because when do you actually tell yourself that you're a remote worker, right? A lot of people said in COVID, and sure, I actually started even before COVID, when my previous company, they had this like work from home type of lifestyle. So like once a week we can do it. Nobody in my team was using it. So what I was doing was I was combining my vacation time with my remote work time. So I was gonna be like 2 weeks in Croatia or 2 weeks somewhere else and traveling, kind of like that, and working at the same time. Didn't think of myself as a digital nomad or a remote worker because I still had a physical office. When COVID hit, I was in Canada, initially supposed to
Wow.
be for 10 days, but it became 3 months because COVID happened. And I was like, huh, I can actually do this.
Mm.
I came back to Germany and then figured out, okay, I really don't want to be in Germany anymore. So I went to like Portugal. I went back home to Siargao in the Philippines and loved it. Loved. I had so much time to develop my new hobbies. And then at that time, I was still like hiding from my company that I was working outside of Germany. I moved to Portugal because they kind of figured out that the Wi-Fi situation that time was really bad for me. So I said, okay, I need to go back to Europe anyway because of my visa and everything. Where do I go? I went to Madeira, and somebody told me that there is a digital nomad community there. And I was like, I've heard about them. I'm not a digital nomad, but I want to be one. When I came there, the first person that I met there, they were like, oh, you're a digital nomad. I'm like, no, I'm not. And he
Mm.
was like, yeah, you are. I was like, oh, okay. So that was a time that I kind of like branded myself as one. And then I got involved with the community. I became a community manager for the digital nomads in Lisbon, south of Lisbon. And I went to Fuerteventura, then Malaga, all the way now. Quit my job in the process too, and did some yoga teacher trainings. And now I have this lifestyle that I have where I have a marketing agency for travel and adventure brands. And I also have this retreat business that is more of like a passion project for me right now, but I would love to kind of like work on that more in the future.
I'm very excited, of course, to be seeing more of Kaya in November. So, why don't you tell us more about
Yeah,
that as well? Who's it for? What do you do?
so excited. Okay, so Kaya Connections, that's the name, or Kaya for short, is my retreats business. I initially wanted it to be just like a 1 week retreat for like people like me, basically, entrepreneurs who don't have like the time to just back off and work. They just need some kind of like productive work time, you know? And initially it failed. It wasn't really selling as much because I realized that a lot of people, they it's not just money that they're committing, but it's also their time that they're committing. And I realized a lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, cannot commit to 1 week of not working or even reduced hours. And I was like, okay, like let's put that in the back burner for now. I would love to work on them first still, but I still want to help people and I still want to help digital nomads. Like, how do I do this? In fact, I've already been doing it. I was just not branding it before. I've been since 2021. I've been bringing people back to the Philippines already. And I was telling them, guys, you have to see this. This is an amazing place. In 2021, it was very hard because we didn't have Starlink. Internet was
Mm.
very unstable, but people still loved it. And the fact that I was there to just tour people around and be the bridge between locals and nomads kind of like made me rediscover myself. And I realized this is exactly what people need. On one hand, the locals want like more, let's say, exposure to people who are traveling as well. On the other hand, the nomads, they want a more fulfilling and authentic adventure that like typical tour companies won't give you. I realized most of the tour companies have been to several tour things and also solo traveled myself. It's missing this aspect of authenticity, like having someone tell the story of how they were when they were a
Mm.
child in that place. So I'm trying to kind of like create this storyline where they are immersed into this and they actually understand. When I was like bringing people there, the people always were like so confused about like why are we using Spark and Foon, or what spoon did I say spoon
I was like,
did I say Spark? Whoa, let me go
I
back.
was like, I'm not questioning it.
Fork and spoon. And like a lot of people, they also just go topless in the beaches, when in fact for us as a very conservative country, this is actually not something that we usually do. So a lot of these common misconceptions, just because these places get too westernized now, and we've
Mm.
seen that in Bali, we've seen that in Mexico, and even in Madeira, just because people think that it's normal, it's okay, but normal does not mean it's okay. So that's kind of like what we're trying to do with Kaya. So I've been doing retreats. I've been doing 4 retreats already. That's official. And the next one is in November, where Han is going to be there too. So I'm excited to show you around.
Yay.
But we're also having ones in Ecuador. We have another. It's amazing because she was our retreat participant first. And she told me, I want to do this for my country. And so she's going to help me do that in Ecuador. She's going to be the one leading it. She's from Ecuador. So you can actually, like, you know, all these like things that we're going to do in Ecuador is also just things that like she knows, only locals know. Like, it's not something that like you see in blog posts or you see in videos. It's something that's like close to her heart, right? I love that. So we're trying to kind of create this global movement of like bringing nomads back home. So it's also like a way we're saying like back home co-livings or back home retreats. So like bringing people, and maybe in the future we even like go with like on like not so popular destinations, even the UK. I'm pretty sure because of, you know, you go back to the UK, you say like you don't like it. Everybody, like when they talk about their country, they're like, oh, I don't like my country, that's why I left. But if they were given the chance to actually like tour like 15 people to their home, they're going to be so proud of it. And they're like, oh my God, this makes me feel like home, right? So that's kind of like what we're trying to hone in and bring people around several different places. So that's the whole essence of Kaya, building connections while giving respect to the people, the community, and the culture and the environment.
I absolutely adore it. And I have several follow-up questions that I want to like, one comments I want to make. Because on the one hand, like,
I just blabbered all the way. I'm
sorry. No, because this is literally why I wanted to chat. My mindful content is something I've spoken about for about 5 years. Yeah, 5 years at this point. And part of that process was, funnily enough, being in the pandemic when we could only go. In the UK, there was one point where we could only go somewhere like 20 miles radius of our house or something like that. So, of course, in content at the time, we were going, oh my gosh, we can't do travel, we can't do our content, what do we do? And so it set off for me this sort of almost falling back in love with where I was from, right? So, because like I couldn't do my content anywhere else, and as much as I would have liked to have been that person who could, you know, buy all the things to make up each different culture that people were like sort of sharing online, that wasn't really what I was about. So I was like, okay, how can I go about creating the classic Ubud swings in Surrey in the UK? How can I go about, because funnily enough, like actually I'm from the area where the holiday film was filmed, so already I kind of had a lot
you told me about
like on my doorstep already. But it was kind of, okay, how can I make the typical vineyard photos that you see in France and Italy? How can I do that in the UK? There's a vineyard that was like half an hour away from where I was staying, you know, in the UK. And again, you would never think wine vineyard England, right? So it was a nice little project to be able to, I would say, fall back in love with where I'm from and like rediscover how to essentially redo storytelling in my mind, right? Because you don't need to go spend thousands of pounds, dollars, whatever, to go have an experience. You can find that sense of home, you can find that sense of a story from where you're at right now. And then, of course, my brain's going, yeah, but the UK has a slightly different opinion on remote working. So it's like, yeah, you don't, well, I suppose it depends on different destinations, right? You've already mentioned a couple of things, but what do people maybe need to know about the Philippines that they maybe don't know? Or is there something that people might find surprising about the Philippines?
I would say, I think one of the most surprising things is the Philippines is made out of 7,100, whatever, 7. It used to be 7,107. That's kind of like a bigger number for us. Now it became 7,124, blah, 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 islands. Wow. Global warming. But we have a lot of islands.
Gosh.
So we're an archipelago. So it's actually really hard for people to have a centralized culture. So the culture from the north is very different from the culture from the south. I read this recently, actually, and it also blew my mind that the culture across seas, like Filipinos are voyagers, you know, seafarers. So if you have 2 islands, imagine like one shore of the first island and the adjacent shore of the second island, they would have the same culture because Filipinos love using boats. Whereas one side of the island versus the other side of the island have completely different cultures because they have mountains in between, forests in between. It's very hard to navigate and communicate in between these, like inter island, yeah, through the island rather than through different islands through both. So a lot of people, they say like, oh, Philippines, like I've been there, and I always ask where, because one part of the Philippines is completely different from the other part of the Philippines. I came, which is weirdly enough, my main hometown, or like where I was born, is the only Catholic city in a huge span of Islamic culture. And that's like very different, you know? When I was in high school, I had a lot of friends who were like Islamic and everything, and it's just so different for me. Moving to Manila for my college, for my university, I was like, I don't understand what they're talking because my dialect is different from their dialect.
Wow.
So it's a lot of these things, a lot of things that are very different. We have 200 dialects in the Philippines.
Gosh.
And like one thing that people also fail to realize is because we're an archipelago, it's harder to kind of like divide and conquer kind of thing. I mean, it is easier to divide and conquer, but also harder to unite. What this means is we are very much a developing country. So a lot of my retreat participants, especially those who are into health, I am very much into health too. And one of the things I realized just this year is how much like scarcity mindset we have. So what I mean by that is people would rather buy canola oil or seed oil rather than olive oil because it's cheaper. People would always prefer the cheaper option, even though it's bad for the environment, bad for health, bad for, what else is bad? People
Themselves, yeah.
um themselves. And that is harder to do in terms of like you just mentioned a while ago, like sustainable tourism. Yes, you can do like metal straws or whatever, but that's nothing compared to the general consensus of like their mindset is still whatever is cheaper, that's what I'm gonna get.
That's such an interesting take, actually, because I mean, we'll talk more about this now, I guess. I was curious to know like what kind of mindful tourism means to you, because it's something that I feel has been floating around obviously for a very long time now, and different parts of the travel industry, the hospitality industry, the nomad space, we all have this sort of different take on what it means to sustainably travel, to mindfully travel. And like for me, for example, part of that is content, your not just your carbon footprint but your digital footprint, but also 100% like health. I never really quite made that link. The healthy living or conscious living is also technically part of travel or tourism, right? So I guess for you, yeah, what does it mean to mindfully travel and sustainable travel?
So before that, I want to premise that like if I had, let's say, 1,000 of me, there's just so much that I would love to work on. But I am just myself, and I have priorities, and my priorities might not be in line with like everything that I need to. Somebody told me that like list out all the things that you want to do. The first three things are your priorities, the rest are distractions. And that's kind of like something that I live by, especially as an ADHD, I think self-diagnosed ADHD person. Like that's the things I need. But when we talk about sustainable tourism and I talk about like mindful tourism or mindful travel, a lot of it has to do with kind of like being there for a very long time in order to create an impact. So what I mean is like there are several NGOs, several organizations there that create these sustainable ecotourism things, and I applaud them, and I would love to kind of like create something like that, or at least contribute to that, because I am not there 24/7. I'm not there the whole time of the year. And that's what I'm trying to incorporate with Kaya is like we would rather go with, we have a balance between the touristy stuff, which is obviously the amazing and beautiful parts of the island, but we're also going to be joining this NGO that goes with like helping farmers or helping people understand what sustainability is. So if education for me is just the number one thing, like now I'm educating nomads, but I prefer also like having people to educate locals. One of the things that kept coming back to my mind was, how do you define the line between respecting someone's culture and imposing your values? Because imposing your values also means that this whole culture is going to develop, right? So I give you a big example of like, if one of the things is like, I met someone in Bali, and he was like always complaining that the roads were really bad, and it could have been better. And I'm like, I just said like, yeah, but that's their culture to just do this and that, like all the traffic and everything. And it caught my mind. I'm like, why are we normalizing this when in fact it could have been improved? But because a lot of people are respecting the culture, quote unquote, it's being normalized and it's being said like it's fine, it's okay, this is how it is. So this is kind of like something that's of like an ethical debate in my head. I'm like, yes, but it could be better. But am I just coming from a like developed country mindset too? So in terms of like going back to your question about like mindfulness, it's I don't think there is like a definite like way to go about it. I think it's the best way would just be like to have actually this debate in your mind and be self-aware that what you're doing can impact the environment, can impact the culture. So if, like I said, if I were to have a lot of things, I would have gone to like straight to the source, which is educating everybody. But do I have the resources, the energy of all of this? Not yet, maybe in the future.
I'm holding you to that. I'm curious for what that looks like for you in the future, for sure. It was interesting as you were
Yeah.
saying, like what you were talking about there, because I was thinking, I suppose in a way we all take our own sort of piece of what it means to mindfully travel, right? So for me, like that might not look like how you would maybe do it. For me, for example, the content side resonates strongest for me because that's something that I have some experience in and therefore I can talk more about it. For you, that's through your businesses, that's something that you can maybe like contribute to, I guess. So that was such an interesting take, especially as digital nomads and people who are a little bit more sort of aware, I guess, of the impact that we do have as more long stay tourists because we see and we try and integrate with communities a little bit more. I guess we are kind of all looking for ways that we can sort of help give back and be more mindful. And I think having this conversation itself is really quite insightful, if I do say so myself, because again, it's such a big topic and it's quite a daunting topic. But actually, if we took the different bits and pieces that mean something to us, that kind of contributes as a whole too, I think. I did have one question actually though. I feel like this is one of those conversations you can like go full on deep dive or you can just kind of talk a little bit about and then move away from. Overtourism has sort of been a big conversation for a long time, and I feel like digital nomads are beginning to are now getting sort of brought into that conversation. Like, oh, digital nomads are taking houses, digital nomads are like doing XYZ. I'd be curious to know how maybe Kaya have any plans to sort of manage this.
Yeah, so the vision of Kaya is kind of like to be the educational arm of like nomad travel, just because like at least it can tell them as well that like, hey, these are like things that you can do. These are our culture as well. The reason why it's also just like 4 week retreats for me is because I think coming from the local side too is that I like people to come there, stay there for a month, 2 months, but not really make it as a base because it's a very fragile island, or not just in the Philippines, but also in other places. And that's why I call it like retreats and not like, oh, move here, kind of like that thing. I do like definitely Kaya is still not perfect, and I am still figuring out what's the best way for us to give more impact into society. And this is a very, like it's a very touchy subject, obviously, for the locals, who are like benefiting from tourism. They loved it. They love it because, yeah, more people are coming. But just to give you an idea, in my island, it's already 70% foreign owned. And the prices are going higher and higher every year that I come back. I'm so shocked that like more and more prices go higher and higher, that locals are not able to afford it anymore. I have heard it from several friends that they're thinking of moving to a different place too, which sucks because this island is just so beautiful and it has a lot of things in my heart. But I'm also thinking like I don't know if it is inevitable, if there are things that we can do. And that's why I'm saying Kaya is still not perfect, because I am not as like educated on this matter too. I'm just doing something with my small influence that I can do, let's say. I would love to have someone to talk to with regards to this too, but like I said, I don't have enough energy and time to do everything like this. It's also like I see it all the time. I remember when I was like 16 years old, I saw this YouTube video of someone calling himself a digital nomad, creating a house in Bali. And I was like, I want that. And then I started researching more about it throughout the years. And it's hard because there are a lot of these content creators, digital nomads, even maybe you and I as well. We kind of like justify our actions. And because of that, we do believe that it is for the betterment of society. And that may be true in our eyes. Is it true in the eyes of the locals? So that's kind of like the thing that we're trying to do, is also create this form of conversation between them. It's hard, language barriers and all of these things. And it goes back to me just having this debate and not knowing what the right answer is yet.
I don't know if there is one right answer because, like, for example, all I know about Shagao I've learned from you and your stories, right? And there are videos, of course, going, is Shagao the next Canggu in Bali? And I'm going, oh no. It's funny how, especially Canggu and Seminyak in Bali have kind of become, not the bar, but sort of like how everybody else holds up different destinations for digital nomads and things like that, or tourism in general. And kind of sad, I guess, in a way, how that's sort of become standard for what it looks like when a lot of people do kind of congregate in one place in the world. And so now I don't know if there is one right way of doing it, because at the end of the day, you're not going to necessarily stop people from visiting, right? All the while they can.
Not just visiting, even setting up shop. Like every person that I meet there, they'll be like, I'm thinking of buying land. And I'm like,
100%. And I think about the fact that when I went to Mexico City, for example, where literally I hadn't even arrived, right? I just landed, put a video up about being excited being there, and I got bombarded on TikTok with comments about Gringo Go Home. Like, it took me, after I put the languages I speak on my profiles, the hate was less, but you still got that hate because, and even the videos where I put like, here's how we try to contribute back, locals still didn't want it. They weren't there. I feel like there's always going to be, we're doing our best and we're trying to manage this as best as possible, but there's always going to be somebody who's not happy with it, and I can understand it. There are different types of local, there are different types of visitor, and I don't know if we're ever going to come to one full conclusion on this matter, but I suppose it's about managing things as best we can, right? And sort of trying to encourage as best as possible in different ways. Do you think?
Let me add to that. It's kind of like, I think for me, coming from, both sides, I would say, I also understand what these locals are coming from, because they're coming from, like I said, a scarcity mindset, that they're like, they just think, even now, I also think that like life is so unfair. Even now, like, just to give you a recent interaction I had, like, I'm working my ass off, I'm working so hard to do this and that and blah blah blah. Like, I'm working so much. And I'm privileged already that I'm actually in Europe, right? And then I met someone who's way younger than me, who is someone from a different country and not really doing so much, but she's already like buying land in the Philippines and thinking about buying like making a house there, just because it's still so much cheaper to do that in the Philippines than in her home country. And my instinct was just like, I don't know, maybe because I was just so tired that time, I was like, life is so unfair. And like, that was like my thinking. And even though I was already like in the same, let's say, social standpoint as her, that was still my thinking. So I can imagine like what people who are like still in the lower social class are thinking, because honestly, they work harder than us. They work so much harder than us, but they can't just break past that glass ceiling. And that's also the reason why I kind of like make these talks everywhere, putting your life up together, but it's not that easy too. So I have that part. Even if you put, let's say, the best person in the world, let's say Albert Einstein, you put them in the Philippines, he's not gonna flourish, because it boils back down to government, society. They're not there to support these kinds of acts. So even for me, when I was growing up, I was always bullied being this one person who's like so ambitious and whatever, So I've talked to so many people already. It has to do a lot with government, and I'm not into that. Like, that is something that I'd really, really rather not be involved with. But that's the hard part. The people who actually want change don't want to get involved with government. And the people who are in government, most of them are, I wouldn't say not everybody, but a lot of them are in there for the wrong reasons. So it's kind of like hard to find, someone who wants to do both and someone who's actually successful in doing both. And that's where I am at right now. I'm kind of like, just okay, I'm tired again. Because that's the difference.
So basically, you've got, I guess it goes back to, again, doing what we can with how you mentioned before, with the influence you do have, using the influence you do have.
Yeah.
And I guess using the privilege that we do have. Whole other conversation there. But no, I think,
I know.
sorry, I was like, I'm going to stop that right there because we've only got a few minutes left. But no, this has been super interesting. And I think for especially as long stay tourists, because I feel like there are a few different projects that have sort of tried to get off the ground when it comes to digital nomads and long stay tourism. And this has to do with not just seasonal tourism, promoting all year round tourism. Like, this is why I'm like, right, you can only do so much because different people have different capabilities, people have different priorities. Like, there's so many different ways we can go about these kind of projects and initiatives. But I feel like there is definitely a big opportunity for long stay tourists, or like digital nomads, depending on how you want to call them. And I'm super curious to see how that could start helping local businesses. For example, my whole thing is that long stay tourists have time to go give airtime to more local businesses. Long stay tourists actually have time to go check out what the local community has to offer. And I feel like it's one step and it's very fresh-ish. And with Kaya, for example, I think could be a super interesting new chapter for tourism in general.
One of the things I realized, I don't know, I mean, maybe this is just like my mindset right now. Absolutely open to new insights about this, but from what I realized with a lot of this foreigners who are in my island, so like you said, to just like support local businesses and all of these things, blah blah blah. Two things. One, the local businesses, quality wise, is just really really low compared to the quality of the foreign businesses, because the foreign businesses have more capital. Of course they're gonna have like better facilities, better infrastructure, beautiful places, so where do people go? They go to the better ones for convenience, right? Second thing is, a lot of these foreigners who are like, long-term nomads, long stay nomads, one of the things I realized too is kind of like, what is stopping them from just creating their own business there, from just creating another coffee shop, from just creating, another establishment? And that's kind of like what's happening here. Like, I see a lot of these long-term nomads, they're like, I want to create this, I want to create that, I want to create this, blah 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 blah. Which is, I think, one of the things too that like a lot of people from developed countries have like things, because they're more ambitious compared to like us Filipinos, because we're coming from a scarcity standpoint. Like, we don't even know if we can survive tomorrow. Like, how can I think long term, whereas these foreigners, they're like, why would I support a local business when I can just create my own? And I think a lot more nomads, the trend of like entrepreneurship is starting to become bigger and bigger throughout the years. So a lot of people, a lot of coaches like telling people to just quit their 9 to 5, blah blah blah. So a lot of people go into entrepreneurship now, and they'll be like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, I can make another business, I can make this, I can make that, myself included. So this is also something that I've observed with local nomads as well, right? Sorry, not local nomads, with nomads as well.
I have so many different things that I want to follow up on this, but I'm so worried we've only got...
Go ahead. I still have some pancakes, so
yeah, we only have a few minutes. I feel like, honestly, this is something that could be, I know for me, I want to keep talking about, because there is just so much more to a country in general. I mean, I'm so intrigued for November when I come and see you in Siargao, and I feel it's just such a bigger conversation that just needs to keep being had, because again, there are certain things that you've said to me that I thought, oh damn, yeah, like I hadn't even thought about that, and I'm so curious for where this could go next. And I think it's just so important to keep talking about it. I think maybe let's keep this concise for now, and maybe we could like do a follow-up when I see you in Siargao or something like that. But yeah. Because no, this is something I'm so passionate about. I'm like lost for words and have all the thoughts in my head. Maybe I'm self-diagnosed ADHD, I don't know. But yeah, I think before we leave off though, final question that I always give to everybody: fill in the blank. Home is where?
Home is where I don't know. Oh my gosh, I don't know. Where is home right now? For me, home is Siargao, obviously, but it's not my home forever. Home is where I feel like I'm myself.
Love it. Marie, it's been so awesome to chat. Thank you so much, and I cannot wait for November.
I'm excited. Can I say something though?
Go for it.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to add this, but recently I've been talking to a mentor and he said like all my goals were kind of like unaligned. I have the marketing agency, I have the Kaya retreat business, and he was asking me what I want to do, and all my goals are just like everywhere, right? I don't know if you've seen my stories as well, that there was a time where I actually just sat down in the forest, kind of like butt slid here and there, so I was like really stuck in the forest for a while. But I was like writing down on my ikigai, or like what I actually want to do and what I want to have. And when we were talking in this podcast, one of the things that I realized really was that like what I'm planning to build is just something that's really much needed, or maybe not, I don't know. It's going to be my goal to set that up in the next 3 to 5 years. Lots of capital needed and lots of things needed, and I would love to look for more partners who are aligned in the same goal. Basically, if I have to consider like what I'm good at, what I love to do, what can I get paid for, and what does the world need? What does the world need, right? I want to create this rural, small community in a place that is absolutely not touched. Because of Starlink, it just opens up a lot of opportunities everywhere, right? For you, home is where the Wi-Fi is. So once we have Wi-Fi, we can actually go to several other places. There are some islands that I'm looking up in the Philippines, and I want to like set up a place for like productive rest, for a place where people can just rest and have a cafe without the obligation. They don't feel that they want to open up their laptops. And also for people to just play. So the goal is to kind of like have this space where like people can stay and, like 8-10 rooms, and have a yoga studio where people can, not just a yoga studio, a studio for yoga, movement, calisthenics, capoeira, whatever people feel good doing about their body and their health. And then like a cafe for like with healthy food where just people can just go. So it's kind of like a small ecosystem of, I call it, for conscious professionals or mindful professionals, I would say. I still don't know the right term for it. I don't know if conscious professional, mindful professional is it, but to describe it is like on a scale of 1, where 1 is like a hippie and 10 is like Elon Musk, who doesn't care about spirituality. I want to target the 6 and the 7s, because that's where I'm at too. Like, I'm ambitious, but I'm also like into spirituality. I also love these kinds of things, and I want to bring people there, kind of like spend 1 month, 2 months just there, like living off grid, living with the Wi-Fi. That's the only thing we need, and then we have all of these like facilities that just caters to rest, recreation, and obviously connection building. That's kind of like what maybe Kaya will be going in the future. So if anybody is listening into this podcast who is interested in kind of like something like this, it's still like really, really, really at the starting level. I would love to connect.
Can I just add, I'm so happy and pleased that this is something that came up for you while we were chatting. I absolutely love that. And no, 100%, this is exactly where I'm at with things as well. I suppose it's sort of tapping into your intuition. It's tapping into sort of also what you need as a human, and not just that kind of like hustle side of things that has maybe kind of been the driving force up until this point. It's also tapping into what we need as humans, as you said, what the world needs as well. And I think honestly, oh God, again, like there's so many different things I would love to chat to you about that you've just mentioned there as well. But I think also it's understanding that maybe the goals don't necessarily look aligned right now, but I bet you they're all taking you in the direction that it's eventually going to make sense at some point. Because that's how I feel at this moment, which is a whole other conversation. But I think
a whole other conversation.
Yeah. So no, I think that's something that is needed. I think that's a super interesting take. And 100%, if anybody, well, have you still got space on the November retreat? Because that went quite quick.
There is 3 more rooms available, okay. And 1 space for a shared person with another girl, and she's amazing. She's beautiful. I don't know. I've talked to her as well. She just has a really nice heart. So if anybody wants to go to Siargao in November, we still have spaces.
Come and connect. Yeah. Honestly, there's so many different things I want to chat about now, but this has been amazing, Marie. I'm so glad we finally got to do a podcast.
I'm so glad, actually. I was just waiting for you to just like, Marie, join me. And I'm like, I'm not gonna go to but I'm actually really happy Like really, even me just like sharing this out loud, I just realized so many things too that I'm like, I'm actually really happy to share these things that I've never, no one has ever asked me this, and it's like chunks of gold. Like, I wish a lot of people can hear this.
Getting chills. All right. Stay tuned for an obvious part 2 at some point. And yeah, can't wait to see you.
Yeah, see you soon, Han.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Remote Life, and thank you, Marie, for taking the time to speak with us. You can find links to Marie's profiles below. Thank you so much again for listening, and we can't wait to remote work with you again soon.